Why is SpaceX pumping? It's over $2.9 trillion in market cap currently, number 4 for the biggest company in the world. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another beautiful day in real estate. We're going to dive into SpaceX a little bit today. We're going to talk a little bit about why they are doing so well on the IPO and why I'm eating my words, which is totally fine because honestly, I'm just glad to see that people are starting to make money. I did do a video the other day that was talking a little bit, it was just a quick TikTok video, but I was talking about how people are starting to have hope once again. People starting to feel like there's opportunity out there for the first time in a few years. It seems like I'm starting to see more people that want that family orientation again. So they want that white picket fence, the family, all those sorts of things, which for a while seem to dissipate. Stuff like this, that like when the market tears and people are actually making money, people start to feel hopeful again. I mean, it's been a really rough 6 years. I mean, since 2020, everybody's really been in the ringer, to say the least. So anyways, let's dive into it today. We'll talk a little oil, talk a little bit about interest rates, but mainly we're going to talk about SpaceX today because there's a lot of good things happening with this company. And to be honest with you, I didn't know much about until I started reading into it this morning. And maybe that's my fault for jumping to an opinion without really grasping the full line of things. But anyways, interest rates are starting to move down. Why? Because oil is falling off a cliff, and we'll touch on those charts in just a second, which has been super awesome. Trump was right, first time in a while. He says once the war ends, oil prices will fall off a cliff, and guess what? They did. Interest rates are on their way down as well. We're starting to see good moves in the bond market, down to 4.44 for the 10-year Treasury. You can see right here. Again, we'll touch on those charts in just a second. It is getting to be really awesome to see positivity in the market for the first time in it seems like years. I mean, there's been a good couple bumps in the road and whatever, but we're finally on the way up again, which feels good for the first time in a while. But let's talk about oil. Oil's been looking even better today, and I'm sorry for all you oil traders out there who are eating a bag right now. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? So this is the WTI crude oil on the daily chart. Again, I always do 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, right? That's usually what my expectation is. I did mention to somebody yesterday that I go 666 on some of my trades, 6 months or 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months. And she goes, that is not a good, that's not good juju to have around. But anyways, so daily charts, you guys, everything has been kind of, I mean, we talked about this all the way back to here. We had these double top. We had a lower high, lower high, lower high, and then we were falling back down. We just broke through a pretty strong resistance right around $79 a barrel at 76 as market opened this morning. We're 21 minutes into the market for 6/16 of 2026. But it just, I mean, it all boils down to the Iran deal, really. I mean, let's look at crude real quick. Crude oil is bouncing towards its support around 81.19, 81.90 currently. I mean, we're getting very, very close. It bounced basically off of it. It's a pretty strong candle, though. When you see bigger candles, you can kind of tell. Usually when they're engulfing of such a nature, they're going to fall off, and we haven't seen the bottom format just yet. But it is interesting to kind of see this stuff again. Crude oil had its double top right around here, double top, and then it had a lower high, and now we're heading down once again. The RSI has not seemed to recover at all. It's continuously showing weakness until we break above, until we break above about 45 to 50 on the RSI. Chances are we're going to be kind of stuck where we're at. More than likely, we're going to continue to move down. This is the next major support for crude oil, right around $80 a barrel. If we break below that, goodness gracious, it looks like the next step. Just a quick glance. I'm not going to take too much time here. I'll pay attention later. But from quick glance here, it looks like we found the support right around here, 81 to 71 bucks a barrel. Excuse me. And then below that, our next stop is about 60 bucks a barrel. So if we want to pay attention, it looks like that channel is going to kind of factor in between 81 and $77 a barrel. You can see some of the consolidations we've seen kind of bouncing in between more than once, more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd call that 7, 8, 9. So there's been a decent amount in that little channel, which is something that we really don't usually pay attention to. It seems like either you're paying attention to actual charts, or paying attention to the actual chart patterns, or you're paying attention to trend lines, or you're paying specifically attention to like support and resistance. But I'm starting to see these channels form. The more we draw on these, the more we pay attention to them, the more we're kind of aware of what's going on in the market. But I will say, as of right now, it's been really good to see oil fall off a cliff. I know a lot of people were a lot of people were not very optimistic about this conversation of a parent deal with Iran, but now it's starting to showcase, and we're starting to see positive things in the future here, which is good. On the 19th, so what is the day? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So essentially Friday, I shouldn't have to do that on my count on my fingers, but that's the day we're having. But sounds like they're going to be opening up in Switzerland, and then they are going to be signing a deal, which is kind of ironic considering Switzerland's always been the neutrality state, neutrality, country, whatever. But anyways, long story short, it feels good to kind of see this stuff, right? We're starting to see some positive momentum. And we're going to talk about the S&P, we're going to talk about bonds, and then you will jump into SpaceX. So SpaceX, 10-year Treasury bond, you guys, is still bouncing off that 4.45 range, which is a pretty strong support point. However, I think once the deal gets signed on Friday, is more than likely when we're going to see this break below. So I'm expecting into the weekend we're going to see some downward action. Again, on the RSI, we saw our peak, a lower high. Starting to come down. Same thing on the stochastic double top, essentially. Well, maybe not a double chop, I guess, but we saw our tops, and then we're seeing kind of a lower high. My guess is there's not as much volume to push this back up. More than likely, we're going to head back down into that 4.32 range, which is honestly where I'm expecting us to kind of end up by the end of next week. We'll kind of see, and we'll pay close attention. This is the 10-year Treasury bond, by the way. I feel like I have to clarify this stuff, and it's on the daily chart. So again, I pay attention to daily charts. I like to anticipate the next couple days. Bitcoin did its nice little V-shaped pattern, or pretty close to a V-shaped pattern right out of that bottom. Now we're kind of seeing a local high right around $65 a barrel, $65, which is kind of not surprising. Paying attention to some of these trend lines, I do a little bit of everything, but it looks like that's kind of that major point. If we could bounce off this and make the next step up, that's going to be good to see. But we'll kind of see as we pay attention a little bit more frequent. Let's see what else do we got going on. RSI's bouncing off the 45 currently, which means more than likely we've got another leg down, or at least a consolidation for the time being. S&P 500 is off on another gap open this morning. Or wait, that was yesterday, I think. Yep, that was yesterday. So today we're about to find out here pretty shortly when things are going. Is it me, or is the market, am I just crazy, or is it, I feel like I thought the market opened at 8 Central. Maybe it's 8:30 and I'm losing my absolute mind. But anyways, whatever. Now for the big dog, SpaceX, everybody. SpaceX is at the pre-market was just above 202, which is pretty nuts to see. I was not as optimistic about this stock, as I'm sure you're all well aware. This is kind of interesting to pay attention to. First thing let's dive into. Kobeisi letter. Again, this is somebody I pay attention to. Very good profile, very good content. It says, absolutely incredible. SpaceX is now trading above $220 a share in overnight trading. This makes SpaceX worth $2.9 trillion, less than $100 billion away from surpassing Microsoft. This is also, SpaceX is up 63% from its IPO at $135 a share. Furthermore, the combined market cap for both SpaceX and Tesla is now $4.4 trillion. That's bigger than the market cap of Apple and roughly equivalent to the market cap of Google. To top it all off, SpaceX has raised a record $85 billion after underwriters exercised the green shoe overall allotment. Never in history has an IPO ever come remotely close to what we are seeing right now. Truly incredible. So even like some of the more credible accounts are just like, get the fuck out of here. This is nuts to see. I mean, it is honestly pretty crazy to imagine what's going on. But this is the next post is a bold theory post. It's a little longer, but we're gonna work through it together here. It's pretty actually significant. And like I said, maybe I shouldn't have jumped off the bridge. Like I still think that, when it comes to IPOs, you're more than likely going to see kind of a big pump off the gate, and then we might see a little bit more of a dump, and then kind of a stabilization before it makes its next leg up. I did not get into SpaceX. I wasn't really too enthused about it at the time, but when it comes back down, based off of what I'm starting to read, I'm going to be buying more. And if I miss the boat, I miss the boat. I've done it before. It doesn't bother me. It means there's another boat out there that we can catch on to that we're going to be interested in and be more confident in. Anyways, the biggest threat to Nvidia, Amazon, and Azure right now is rocket company SpaceX. SpaceX generated $18.67 billion. Okay, come on now. $18.67 billion in revenue in 2025 at $184 per share today. It's valued at $2.4 trillion, 129 times trailing revenue. Nvidia trades at 22 times and Amazon at 4 times. The valuation only makes sense when you understand what SpaceX is actually building. Again, not understanding this made me lead a little bit more bearishness because of evaluation. Anyway, SpaceX declared a total addressable market of $28.25 trillion in its IPO filing, equal to the entire annual GDP of the United States. That's insane. 26.5 trillion of that alone is AI, and just 1% capture of its own stated market, SpaceX generates $285 billion in annual revenue. So this right here is a little bit nerve-wracking. 26.5 trillion is AI alone out of the 28.5. So basically 90%, 95, 96% of this is all based off of AI, which again, I'm still not fully sold on. And I mean, maybe I have some demons in my closet from the times when I traded and I first got started and I just got obliterated. But to me, history states that this is all going to have to be, it's going to have to see its peak here. I mean, the thing is that when we see stuff get so bullish to the point where it seems like every market you can't lose, usually when I'm very nervous to get into something. And that's how SpaceX kind of felt. But anyway, Starlink is proven starting point. So those of you that don't know, SpaceX was created of basically 3 different companies, or is consolidated into 3 different companies, which they're working to. And we will explain that here in just a second. But essentially, the main goal is to put data centers in orbit. It's a lot less expensive to do it. It's a lot more efficient, and it doesn't fuck with the infrastructure for the United States or for the world in general, hogging energy or water or whatever the case is. So anyways, well, let's just keep going. The consolidation has crossed 10,000 has crossed 10,000 satellites, holds 60% of the LEO broadband market, and has 10 million monthly active users on direct to sell. Goldman Sachs projects Starlink reaches 144 billion in revenue by 2030. At a standard 10x revenue multiple for subscription infrastructure, Starlink as a standalone business is worth 1.4 trillion, more than SpaceX's entire market cap today before counting anything else. So this right here and alone shows a little bit more valuation justification, right? Like I said, I'm willing to eat shit on this. I already know that I'm going to get a lot of feedback from it, so whatever, it is what it is. The bigger bet is Orbital AI infrastructure, and this is where SpaceX directly threatens Nvidia, AWS, which is Amazon, and Azure simultaneously. AI data centers have a problem that is getting worse. A 1 gigawatt facility now draws more electricity than some mid-sized nations. Local governments are rejecting new projects because of grid strain and water use. The 2 major concerns that we're running into when it comes to data center is the amount of energy that it costs, amount of energy it takes to use. Like here in North Dakota, there's 3 major projects currently being worked on. 1 in Beulah, 1 in Center, and 1 in Jamestown. The one south of Jamestown. The one south of Jamestown uses more power for the facility than the entire city of Jamestown. That is an insane amount. Now, again, granted, there's probably only, I think, like 60,000 people in Jamestown, but still, that's a lot of power. 60,000 humans takes less power than one facility, which is like, I think, 3 football fields big or some crazy number like that. AWS and Azure pay 5 cents or more per kilowatt hour for electricity. That cost is rising as AI demand grows. So local governments are really pushing back, and a lot of people are really getting pissed off because like there's companies down in like Alabama and Georgia and other places where there basically is a consistent humming and vibration in the ground in the city because of the data centers, because of all the fans being used to keep it cool. So what's happening is when companies come in, this is why so many people locally are so pissed off about it. When companies come in and basically build these data centers, it raises the cost of electricity, it uses natural resources, and it creates a constant nuisance of noise in the neighborhoods and within the community. A lot of people don't want that shit anymore. People are tired of big companies coming in and doing that sort of thing. And I mean, right now, there's some companies that are really getting screwed. It's crazy too, because Center in North Dakota and Center here, like we didn't have any approval from what we understood. Like I talked to a few people locally here that, are kind of integrated in the community, and no like legit approval was given. They just started building, which is fucking weird. But anyhow, okay, AWS, these are a bit more kilowatt hour. We talked about that. SpaceX answers to move the compute off the grid entirely. This is where it actually gets pretty fascinating. In orbit, solar panels can generate more than 5 times the energy of the identical array on Earth because there's no atmosphere blocking the sunlight. Capacity factor exceeds 95% versus 24% of terrestrial solar. So the nice thing is when you're in space, you don't have to worry about natural resources keeping it cool because it's already sub-zero temperatures, which is negative 200 degrees. You also don't have to worry about energy because you have consistent round the clock energy with the sun. So no cooling is required. The vacuum of space handles it passively. No land, no grid, no permits, no energy shortages. And an independently verified 10-year cost model for a 40 megawatt cluster, 8.2 million in orbit versus 167 million on the ground. So again, building a project of this nature, again, I'll eat shit on this. I already know I'm going to get feedback from it, but they're trying to integrate infrastructure into space so that we can start utilizing space instead of the natural resources on Earth, which we are running short of, right? A buddy of mine and I have been talking about it. And what do we think one of the major crises is going to be? I think fresh water is going to be one of the main crises that we're going to see over the next few years. But it's a whole nother conversation for another day. We do not have time to dive into that theory. Anyways, an effective energy cost in orbit of 0.01 cent versus or to 0.05 cents per kilowatt hour, 10 to 50 times cheaper than what Amazon and Azure pay today. SpaceX unveiled the AI-1 satellite a few days ago. It's a first orbital data center prototype with 150 kilowatt peak compute, a 70-meter wingspan, and Nvidia GPUs confirmed by the CFO. The company has filed for the FCC to deploy up to 1 million AI satellites. Goldman Sachs projects this division alone generates $322 billion in the revenue by 2030 and a 100-fold increase from $3.2 billion today. Nvidia generated $115 billion in data center revenue last year at 50 to 80% gross margins. Dude, 50 to 80% gross margins is absolutely nuts. Okay, that's a lot. That's a huge profit margin. But anyway, Amazon and Azure each generate approximately $120 billion in annualized cloud revenue. So we know now that the main thing that is now is we're all paying for storage, right? We're no longer own anything. We're paying for everything to rent it, essentially. Rental on storage, rentals on your phones, rentals on your car. You lease a car. Most people are renting houses now. For those of you that know, you remember a few years ago on the World Economic Forum website, by 2030 you will own nothing and you will be happy. It looks like, and the way that my mentor JV says it, we own nothing and we are miserable. But it's just where we're continuing to go. But anyways, all three are energy buyers locked into grid infrastructure. SpaceX Orbital Compute becomes an energy generator with near zero marginal operating costs. This is not a competitive advantage. It is a different sidekicks regime. SpaceX is also moving to eliminate Nvidia chip pricing entirely. TerraFab is a joint semiconductor fabrication venture between SpaceX, Tesla, xAI, and Intel near Austin, Texas. Total investment $119 billion. Target output 1 terawatt per year of AI compute capacity. Intel brings a 14A process node, one of only 3 sub 5 nm processes in commercial production globally. The facility will produce D3 chips, radiation hardened and optimized for orbital data centers, alongside AI chips for terrestrial use. Every dollar TerraFab saves on chip costs is a dollar Nvidia loses. Again, this is not to sidetrack real quick, but this is again partially why I think Nvidia is going to become more of a fab over time, and it's going to see its correction here in the next few months, is just because companies like Nvidia are creating good things now, but that doesn't mean that they are going to be there forever. People that have made their money in Nvidia and should be producing their profits and selling and taking some and moving it elsewhere. That's the point of trading and investing, is to make money, to put other places to make more money. But again, I won't get on my soapbox for that as of today. The xAI merger on February 2nd, 2026 completed the vertical integration at a combined valuation of 1.25 trillion. SpaceX now owns, clicked on the wrong thing. SpaceX now owns the AI models Gronk, the training infrastructure Colossus 1 in Memphis, the orbital deployment system Starship, and the connectivity layer Starlink, and chip manufacturing TerraFab. So SpaceX owns the 4 basic necessities. I shouldn't say basic, but the 4 necessities to create orbitable AI and data centers. That's pretty fascinating shit, in my opinion. That is pretty nutso to imagine. Yeah, okay. Anthropic is already paving SpaceX to rent unused Colossus One compute and competitor, writing checks to SpaceX for access to its own infrastructure. This is the exact model Amazon used when it built AWS for its own retail logistics and sold access to the world. I think, knowing Elon Musk, he's going to try and create something similar to these companies, and then he's going to make it a lot cheaper. And then these companies are really going to be hurting. And I can imagine if Amazon is kind of quaking in their boots, just imagining if this does come to fruition. Is it possible? We don't know yet, but it's kind of crazy how that, with Elon Musk, he's done some crazy shit in the last 10 years. So anyways, the entire global data center thesis depends on Starship at current launch prices of $900 per kilogram, and a 1 gigawatt orbital data center costs $42 billion, 3 times the ground based equivalent at $200 per kilogram. The math inverts completely. SpaceX has completed 2 consecutive super heavy booster catches. Full ship side reusability has not been demonstrated, so basically spaceships cannot be fully reused yet. Goldman Sachs 474 billion revenue projection requires growing from 18.7 billion at a rate faster than any company at this scale ever managed. SpaceX itself has acknowledged in its IPO filing that orbital AI infrastructure relies on unproven technologies and may not be commercially viable. But even if half of this works, $2.3 trillion seems cheap for 2030. This is the one thing that I think most people are going to overlook. And again, I'm just going to always be a little pessimistic. And I know we went over our time today, but this is a very important bit of information we should be studying. But basically, it's saying there is no guarantee this project's going to work, but the idea is they're banking on that they're going to be able to get at least 50% of this capability. Now, I think with Elon Musk is probably going to be the one guy who's going to have the capability to create something like this. I think that his company, his way of business, the way he is passionate about what he does, it is very plausible. But we're still betting on something that isn't exactly here yet, which again leads me to believe that there is going to be an overvaluation of hype. We witness this in every bull scenario where a new product, a new idea comes out. I'll just say metaverses for right now. Metaverses was something that was super fascinating for a time. Everybody anticipated we were no longer going to need the real world. We were going to start building infrastructure and companies and businesses and money generating cash flow through these digital worlds. And then all of a sudden, screeching halt. There is not something out there that's capable of doing that yet. Meta came out with their concept. You had multiple different companies, smaller ones. You had MetaHero, you had WorldCoin, you had all these companies that came out with the idea of metaverses, and they were just unable to establish. So again, we're betting on something. We're betting on a product that does not exist yet. The idea is there, the probability is there, but we're betting on an idea. So when you're investing, again, none of this is financial advice, by the way. None of this. I'm just going off of my opinions, again, of watching things over years and also understanding what's happened over history. More than likely, we're going to continue to see this run, and then it will have to find its correction point. When that happens, a lot of people are going to panic sell, and I think it will fall off a cliff to a point. It will find a solid bottom, and then it will move up over time. And more than likely, if you hold this for 10 plus years, you're going to do very well for yourselves. But that's just my opinion. So SpaceX right now is looking a lot juicier than I thought it was going to. I still am going to stick by my side of opinion that it is going to push up and come back down, and then it will have to revalue before it goes up again. But as of right now, cheers to those of you that are making money. If you made it this far, like and follow, and we will see you tomorrow.